Well, if you were thinking that the SEC coaches are missing Nick Saban, I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're not. And your boy Lane Kiffin, who showed up in Destin with a lime green T-shirt, had this to say about SEC football coaches meetings without Nick Saban. He says Kirby kind of took over and is in the lead now. Uh, in more ways than one, Lane. In more ways than one. It's not surprising. I think that I'm trying to think of who has been at their institution longer than Kirby has been at Georgia. And I will continue to think about that because it's not Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky. So definitely at Kentucky, not Vanderbilt, not Arkansas, not Texas, not Oklahoma, not A&M. You get the point. Not Auburn, not LSU. So I think I went through the whole league there. But look, no one in the league has a national championship besides Kirby that I can think of. No one else has multiple national championships in college football outside of Dabo Swinney. So, there are some real issues right now in the Southeastern Conference. And, Kirby was pretty forceful about one of them yesterday on Tuesday. Well, I say yesterday. I'm recording this on Wednesday. He said that having college football without walk-ons would be a very dangerous thing. That's my summation. That's exactly what he said. But it would be bad. And this is where, Kirby's going to have to take the lead on all this stuff. He's been, he's almost been at Georgia 10 years. He's been in the league since, honestly, he's been in the league since 1994. He's only not been in the SEC for like a season or two. So he knows the league. He probably knows the SEC better than anyone, perhaps even better than Nick Saban. When you consider how long he's been in the league, nearly 30 years, that's a lot of institutional knowledge, knows a lot of people around the league, obviously has been at the two powers of the league lately. Now, one thing that's going to change, Steve Sarkisian could certainly come in and, say, hey, this is the way we did it. This really worked at the Big 12. Can't imagine anybody at Texas saying that, but, we'll just see. Brent Venables, with his experience in the ACC as well as, the Big 12. But with where we're going, that the institutions are going to be able to pay the players, with the threatening of walk-ons, with the Title IX, hurdles you're going to have to deal with. Kirby has perspective on that Lane Kiffin doesn't. When you think you think Kirby Smart's going home to Mary Beth and it's like, oh, we can't pay the women. That's not. There's no value in women's basketball. So that's not happening, and there's got to be there's got to be leadership at that level, because at the coaches level, because what we're heading towards or are already in is a head-to-head showdown with the Big Ten. It's going to be the SEC versus the Big Ten. Someone will divvy up the Big 12, but in the near future, Clemson and Florida State will be in the Big Ten. I don't know how near a future that will be, but that's going to happen in the next 10 years, 7 years, something like that. That will likely happen. And I know that Clemson wants to be in the SEC. It would make a lot of our lives easier, but right now it doesn't look like that's going to happen. That's the background. Like, that's one thing. But I say that to say this. Kirby is going to be the person, likely, who is going, and Josh Brooks is going to be around for a long time too. That's going to guide Georgia into the next iteration of collegiate athletics, where Carson Beck is just straight up cut a check by Georgia. I don't know how much it will be. It might be, $60,000. It might be $100,000. I don't know. I have not done the math yet, but it's a new time. $100,000 gets you to $8.5 million very quick. So if each player at Georgia were given $100,000, that gets you to 8.5 million really quick, and you still have the rest of the sports to deal with, and they're going to have to deal with the rest of the sports. Well, you got to start handling all this stuff now, and you got Lane, who I didn't mention, Lane, Mississippi State. So Kirby's been around longer than everybody except Stoops at Kentucky, and the time is now. All this other stuff, the lack of vision, for sure, the lack of wanting to act, I wouldn't say it was laziness, but I would say fear from the institution standpoints, from all of them. And again, you're listening to somebody who was on a board of trustees at an NCAA institution. And generally speaking, there's not much knowledge about athletics at that level. Okay. So it doesn't surprise me that they stuck their head in the ground. What needs to not happen moving forward is sticking your head in the ground. Okay. That's not good. And these schools have a fiduciary responsibility, these boards have a fiduciary responsibility, not just to the student athletes, or the players or employees, whatever we're calling them these days. They have it to the institutions themselves. If they don't take care of this now, they're going to have a real problem in 15 years. You're going to have a real problem on your hands in terms of what the future looks like, all of these things. So it's time to take all this seriously, and that starts in these coaches meetings. What do we want to see the football look like in 5 years? Are we going to advocate for the SEC getting 3 teams automatically into the college football playoff? Structuring much more like champions in Europe, European Champions League. Is there going to be, instead of, are we just going to go towards a European model where you have Champions League at the end of a season and then you have Europa? So that South Carolina gets to go to the postseason every single year, and it's not a meaningless bowl. They can win the backup bowl, tournament. There's value in that. I see that in European soccer, is because the bowls are going to die. I'm just going to tell you that right now. If you don't have, if you're not Orlando or perhaps Jacksonville, you're out. Like, you're not going to survive if you're in Shreveport. So, what does that mean for all of the schools? And so that Kirby's been around long enough to know. It's been pretty much 3 decades, give or take a couple years. He's got the institutional knowledge about the league that we're going to have to go to. What does 2034 look like? And that's how you do it. And you adjust along the way. Kirby may or may not be the coach at Georgia at that point. I would imagine he probably will be. But what will college football look like? 10 years ago, we were heading into the first college football playoff. That turned out to be probably the best move in college football history. It was obvious we needed change. And, you can thank the Big Ten, Alabama, and LSU for giving you that change, because they were the ones that wanted. Alabama and LSU weren't freaking out about it, and neither was the SEC. They said, well, if it's the best 2 teams, we're usually the best 2 teams. But the Big Ten had enough of it, and they wanted their piece of the pie, and they've won exactly, I think, 2 national championships since 2014 and 2023. So it's not worked out great for them, but at least they got to play in some of the semifinal games. And that meant revenue for them, and it sets them up moving forward in the future good. But there are so many details, but if Kirby can guide the big picture of an institution that has $190 million budget for athletics, he can do the same thing for an organization that has $900 million in billings or whatever you want to call it, in revenue. And if I were Georgia, I would be glad that right now you have Jerry Moorhead as the chair of the NCAA, if I'm not mistaken. You've got Josh. I don't think Josh is. I don't know what he is. That stuff rotates at the AD level. And then but that you've got a very clear and firm voice. At that level, that's good. It's not just good for Georgia. It's good for the SEC, and it's important. And Kirby needs to take advantage of it.